Welcome to the first episode of the Spotlight podcast from Into the Light.
In collaboration with students from Durham Sixth Form Centre, showcasing creative journeys across the North East. For our first episode, we are joined by Julia. Hello.
Hello. Hi.
Hi Julia, I'm Charlie, I'm a local poet.
Hi.
I am Alex, an independent theatre blogger.
Great to meet you both.
And
Nice to meet
yourself.
You too.
Yeah,
Now, you are the head of the programme director of Into the Light.
I am, yes.
What is Into the Light?
Into the Light is a unique opportunity in County Durham about how we can reignite the county through creativity and culture. And we've got a particular focus on how to improve access for people to creative careers and make it a fantastic county to live and work as an artist, as a producer, or any area of the creative industries.
Really good answer, yeah. And so your job entails sort of working with creative groups and people from creative backgrounds. How is that for you?
It's complicated sometimes, but it's a lot of fun. We're a founding partnership of 8 partners of cultural institutions from across the county, including some of the big ones like Beamish, like the Bowes Museum.
Oh, Beamish.
Yeah, we all love Beamish. And Durham University is involved and Durham County Council. But we also have some smaller grassroots organisations like No More Nout in Peterlee, and new organisations like the theatre company we've set up in Horden, Ensemble 84.
Why do you think there is this big sort of cultural phenomenon in terms, I don't know if that is the right word, but the cultural, sort of this cultural thing that's happening in the North East, and why is it important to push that? If that makes any sense.
I think creativity and culture drive so much of our economy, but it's more than that. It's, the cultural heart of communities is very much the coal that makes the train roll, as the song goes. And I think we have had such a fabulous heritage in the North East of innovation, of industry, of production, and yet we need to reignite that confidence and that courage as communities to make the next industrial revolution just as important in this area.
Yeah.
And so often in the UK, investment in culture and the creative industries has been led from big cities, from London, from Manchester, where I know you live, Alex. And actually here what we're looking at is how can we make that happen in spaces that are not big urban centres. We're living in quite dispersed villages and small towns across a very big area. So what do we need to do? And it involves a lot more collaboration, it involves a lot more partnership, and it is more complicated.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you feel like in these deprived areas you've really made an impact?
I think so. We've had a huge boost of energy from the theatre company that we set up in Horden, Ensemble 84, and that is quite a courageous investment. It was about, let's just try something. Let's bring this amazing, inspirational man, Mark Donford-May, from this journey that he's been on in South Africa, which is a very different environment. But actually Mark reflected that a lot of what he'd done in South Africa and a lot of what he had learned could be relevant to a community like Horden, where there's so little opportunity. And we've seen that just flourish really, really quickly. And I think a lot of what is important when you're thinking about encouraging people to have confidence in their talent and to pursue their creative sort of aspirations, it's about seeing that reflected around you, about having role models that you can look up to and seeing a pathway that seems possible. So it's not a lottery ticket, like the next. Sam Fender worked through a lot of graft and a lot of hard work to get where he is. But it's not the lottery ticket of stardom. It's about living in an environment where you see these opportunities around you and you have role models around you that you can follow. And we've seen that elsewhere too. We've done a lot of work with a program called Place Lab, which is about working with creatives and communities to develop ways of engaging with your community and what you would like it to be through culture, through artistic work. And that's included exhibitions and performances in empty shops, in pop-up shops, which is a big problem in this region. Many of our high streets are deserted. We've done work in Castle Dean Shopping Centre in Peterlee, and just seeing how communities can come alive when they have an opportunity to come together and explore their heritage and their stories and their futures through culture.
You've mentioned role models quite a lot. Have you got any personal role models yourself? Because I know you are a celloist and you've been involved in orchestras and stuff. How have you got any personal role models yourself?
Personal role models, I'd say I have a few. Gosh, I'm stuck. Can I pause?
So who got you into the sort of cello side of things? Who inspired you to go down that avenue?
That was quite a fluke, actually. When I
Right.
was at school, I did a music test in the classroom teacher came in, we did a music listening test, and the top 3 students in the sort of, I think it was 2 classes that did it, were told that they would learn an instrument.
Wow.
And it was the cello.
Yeah.
So it was quite funny because at the time I don't think I even knew what a cello was. And for people listening, watching, the cello is like a big violin. And nowadays it's really easy to describe because the opening theme of Game of Thrones is a great cello solo. So that's the cello. But at the time I didn't even really know what it was.
Yeah.
And one role model for me was a neighbour came round with a recording of Jacqueline du Pré playing the Elgar Cello Concerto. And that was the first time I'd actually heard the cello. And he explained to me about the story of Jacqueline du Pré, who was a very famous cellist in the 1960s, 1970s. And that was an initial inspiration. But from then on, I think you do find role models throughout your career. I've been inspired by many artists who have not only in music, but I think that often I would perhaps need to ponder on choosing a role model, because I think you can, as you move through life, you develop a collection
Yes, definitely.
of role
Quite
models.
hard to pin it on just one sort of figure.
Yeah, I know.
You talked about Sam Fender a bit earlier. It's quite clear that the Northeast has such untapped potential in terms of performers, singers, like creatives, I think I should just say, to make it a generalisation. How do you think we can activate the next generation of Sam Fenders?
I think more collaboration with great institutions like this one. I mean, this is fabulous to come into Durham Sixth Form Centre and see the resources that you've got here and the way that the students have put it together. And I think it's often about that connectivity, because the 2 of you have graduated from here but are now pursuing your careers elsewhere. So it's fantastic that you've both come back to do this.
Well, we quite liked being here.
I
didn't
quite
we?
like to come back.
Yeah.
So
a
I
bit
think
of deja vu as well. It's like, why I'm back here? Why am I here? And it's almost like I was here for the most of year 13, and I'm like, this room called so many memories for me.
Yeah. And I think that relates actually to your question about role models, because I've done a lot of work as well with the King's Trust. It was previously called the Prince's Trust, it's now the King's Trust. And I think sometimes as you're going on that journey, if you see somebody my age or older who's successful, it's hard to relate to that. But some people like yourselves are role models for the students here, because you're moving on. And what we're trying to do with Into the Light, along one of the many things we're trying to achieve, is to build that collective responsibility for holding ourselves up and being a champion for all the creatives in this county.
It's really cool because you're sort of like shining a light on the Northeast and sort of like making it relevant to everyone that like we are here, like we do exist, and like there is a big strong cultural presence that lives here. It's really cool work.
Oh, thank you. I'm pleased.
So who's your favourite person to work with, if you keep in contact with them? Who's someone you're really inspired by working with?
On the programme, on the Into the Light programme. Oh, we've got some fabulous people working on the programme with us. I find We've been talking about working with Beamish, and Rhiannon Hiles, who's the director of Beamish Museum, is a pioneer in the county and really wonderful to work with. It's really exciting to walk around Beamish with her because she knows everything about everything.
Private tour guide.
Yeah,
Nice.
you get your own little tour. I think my own team that I work with are really inspirational. We have a researcher at Durham University, Dr. Alison Whelan, and she's come with so much energy and imagination about how to research and evaluate the impact of what we're doing. And I think there's also, I've mentioned people like Mark Dornford May, who's come with such a wealth of experience from all over the world and is really using that to really inspire a group of actors here in the village of Hordern. But we've also had wonderful experiences with individual artists. There are artists like Ruth Flowers, who works very much with heritage crafts and explores those in a contemporary way. We were chatting just before we started about Lewis Hobson, who is making films about the heritage of Durham and exploring how we once had, like, I don't know, the fanciest carpet factory in Durham, apparently.
The best ice hockey team in the country.
And the best ice hockey team in the country. And just really bringing those histories to life for us
Celebrating
again.
Sort of Durham heritage,
Yeah.
which is really important.
Yeah, absolutely.
But before Into the Light, what has your experience been before you joined this program? Because I know you've been a cultural diplomat, and I know you've worked in like Europe and India and the Middle East.
Yes.
How was that?
Really exciting, extremely varied, and I think I worked for the British Council for many years, so I was representing the UK's culture and education in different countries, and as you say, I've worked across most of Europe and lived in different countries to do that, and was also working for a period in the Middle East region and got to meet and work with many British artists, but also artists from those countries.
Very nice.
And I think what it really did for me was, it explored, it's a wonderful way to learn about the world, to meet new people. I think that creativity is often about curiosity, and you need to approach life with a certain level of curiosity. But also, the British Council is an institution that was founded in the 1930s to combat fascism, because its founders believed that in sharing our culture and in sharing our ideas, we could build understanding, and that led to more peace. Now,
That's really positive,
yeah, and I really firmly believe in that, and I've seen that working. I was really privileged to build our programs overseas around commemorating the centenary of the First World War, which is 10 years ago now. And actually many Durham artists and Durham schools were involved in that, because of course Durham, the county and the northeast, were very impacted by the losses in the First World War. And you saw that in exploring those memories and those experiences through culture and through education is a way of helping people think of how we avoid those situations again. And when you think where we are now, I think it's even more important. And I think it's important globally. I think having those conversations between cultures, between people of different countries, and between people who speak different languages is really important. But it's also, I see it being a very important thing here, building that understanding between people who've had different experiences and sharing that experience of people who might not have come from a background where a creative career or a career as an artist is something you would immediately think of. So that's been great. It also makes your life more complicated if you build an international career, because I have friends and family in lots of different places.
The Into the Light programme as well is collaborated with other countries. I know Ensemble 84 has worked with South African artists, so I really like what you're trying to push of collaboration with other countries. I think that's really important and could really lift off sort of the Durham creative industry. So cheers for all that.
Yeah, no, it's and working internationally is actually a great leveler, because I mean, I moved overseas in my 20s, and you move overseas and people don't know where your accent has come from. People won't immediately know where you went to school. You realise that in the UK that's really entrenched in our culture. So you can be whoever you want to be, really. And I think that's also great. And I think there is talent here that is of international standing, and we can stand up to, you know, what's there overseas and work with those people and take our work over there. So having Isango with us last year for Mother Courage was just a wonderful experience. We've worked with our partners at Tin Arts, which is an amazing local dance company, have been working with a group of a dance company from northeast Germany, where the geography and many of the issues that young people face there are very similar. And so they've just created a beautiful film, actually, that I hope we'll be able to share soon. And also we've had a fellows program working with an organisation from the United States, which has also brought thoughts about how you build community. So the Creative Community Fellows program has run in Durham last year and supported 15 artists with their journey in working creatively in communities.
Very nice.
Yeah.
It's just, who would have thought like all these communities from County Durham would be collaborating with people from all over the world. But I like what you were saying about how the global potential for stars in County Durham, and it'd be sort of such a shame if sort of the talent we have just sort of goes and doesn't receive the funding or the experience needed to thrive. So I can really appreciate how Into the Light are really bringing these quite deprived communities into places where they can artistically thrive. Are there any other examples? I know you've got Ensemble 84, but of sort of quite poorer communities. I think you mentioned, is it Peterlee, No More Now? Can you maybe go into that a bit?
Yeah. So we've worked with No More Now around developing, and there's a wonderful collective of female artists based predominantly out of Peterlee, called the Strike Collective.
Right.
And they did a fantastic exhibition in Castledean Shopping Centre,
very nice.
Called Nana's House, which was bringing a lot of our partnerships together as well. So Beamish supported this, and I don't know if anyone actually remembers this, but we brought furniture and items from Beamish to sort of recreate your Nana's house. And but the Strike artists also created new contemporary pieces to reflect on that. And that was a wonderful sort of, my experience when I was there during the exhibition was 5 generations of one family were actually in the space at the same time and exploring their memories of their Nana, and obviously there was a Nana and a great Nana there. And many of the memories that we all had were shared and were similar. And that also sort of brought to life memories and contributions from women in the Northeast, which are often hidden because of our sort of strong story we have about our industrial heritage, which was predominantly male, but of course women held those communities together.
Of course,
and, so that was another one that was really inspirational for me.
With this podcast then, why have this Spotlight podcast, and why now? Is that like why are we doing this now? Why do we need to talk about this now in terms of the world, the current state of the world?
I think that we just, as a team at Into the Light and the partnership of Into the Light, have met so many inspirational people, and a podcast is a way of sharing those people and sharing those journeys, because I think showing that there are many and multiple pathways into a creative career is a great way of inspiring the next generation of artists, or even people who are currently trying to make their way, feeling isolated or feeling like they might be like perhaps making a mistake, and we can share inspiration and some ideas about how that can take shape for different individuals. So it's about sharing some of the journeys from Into the Light, and telling a broader audience that there's there's talent here that's really worth celebrating.
So what's the dream here? What would your ideal artistic Durham look like? What spaces would we see? What communities would we see? What would like an ideal world look like to you?
Oh goodness. I think I'm keen that creativity and innovation can happen anywhere, and the best thing about it is that you can't predict what it's going to be. So I think that I would like to just create space for innovation for people, and I'd like to support those conversations between organisations, but also between individuals about what is your contribution to this, and what do you need from this, and but also what is your contribution to it. So again, with a podcast, it's also about a conversation, really, and I hope people will perhaps hear an episode and reach out to us, or reach out to the guest involved, or reach out to Durham Sixth Form Centre and think about coming to join this amazing course where you get to do, you get to study film and TV and make episodes with us. So hopefully there'll be lots of different ways that it can be successful, but we need investment to make that happen. And that's why the research we're doing with Durham University is also really important, because we need to be much more confident about how creativity and culture, it is work, it is a career, it is an industry, and but it is also the lifeblood of our communities, and it's our identity and who we are.
Yeah, definitely. So there's a lot of sort of stigma about the arts. I know a lot of people, especially in the northeast and quite artistic communities, get told, you're going to get a proper job. How do you reckon we could sort of destigmatise the arts and make artistic people in Durham feel appreciated for what they do?
It is a real problem, I think, with the way we view the creative industries, and particularly because we tend to separate culture and artistic we separate culture and artistic endeavour from the creative industries, which is when it starts to make money in most people's minds. And I think you need both for an ecosystem to really thrive. And I think a lot of us in the cultural sector are constantly trying to understand why the arts is maligned as a sort of hobby or not proper work. It's true that the current sort of financial prospects for somebody going into an artistic career, it's quite a fragile career economically. You're most likely going to be pursuing a portfolio career of some kind. You might have seasonal work or sort of periods of less work when you might need to take part-time jobs in order to make ends meet. And I think that's much more difficult if you're from a background where you don't have resources to fall back on. And that was definitely my story. I mean, when I first left college, I was a professional musician, and I just didn't have the resources to kind of make ends meet when I didn't have enough work. And I had fellow students or people that I was friendly with who did have that. And so it's not about being rich or poor necessarily. I mean, that's quite a common experience for a lot of people. And sometimes you can fall into different careers because you have pursued a stable income.
You have no other choice, really.
No other choice. But I think at the same time, part of that is about telling the wider impact of culture and creativity. And when you look at communities in Durham, in County Durham, that have been completely hollowed out of any kind of opportunity or infrastructure, that's a cultural desert, and nobody should be growing up in those environments. Everybody should have cultural enrichment around them and opportunities to explore their own creativity.
I really like that point, actually, of no one should grow up without the arts and
everyone
the
should
culture.
grow up with a what is the word I'm trying to think of? With a way to access the arts and culture, because it's a really, like, for me, if I didn't come here, I wouldn't be doing what I am doing now. And it's been a really useful tool for, like, me to grow as I'm not saying I'm in the arts, but, like, as someone who was trying to be in this industry, do you know what I mean?
I think you are in the arts. We were talking about your theatre reviews before we came online.
Go
So
follow Alex's theatre blog.
Please,
Yeah.
no, I'm joking, don't.
yeah, no, have courage in what you're doing, because this is exactly how it starts. Yeah.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you
Yeah.
on today.
It's great meeting you.
Thank you so much.
We really appreciate all the work
really-
you're doing around
we
County
really do.
Durham.
Thank
We
you.
are really feeling an impact, and we feel like the creative sector is really rising, so we really appreciate that.
really do.
Thanks for coming on the podcast. It's been lovely to meet you.
Thank
well,
you.
thank you for hosting it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Okay.
Into the Light is a place-based partnership with organisations across County Durham. It's funded by Arts Council England, Durham County Council, Durham University and the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. The Spotlight podcast is produced in partnership with Durham Sixth Form Centre.